Hi there. Well, we are at video number 14 in our study in the book of Acts. We find that Paul's work in Ephesus was finished. The church had been planted, and soon after the riot caused by the silversmiths, Paul left. And in Acts 17:6, we read these words, "These men who have caused trouble all over the world have come here now." Truly, that's what's going on at this time in Ephesus. Paul traveled back to Greece, and then he headed for Jerusalem. His purpose in making the trip was to take an offering that the Gentile churches had collected for the church in Jerusalem. Luke joined up with Paul at this time in Acts 16:10, and he was able to remain close to Paul through the remainder of his life. The trip from Philippi to Troas. Now, I'm throwing all these names of places in here, and if you're not familiar with them, it just sounds like jumble of what? That's why it's key for you to look at a map. And there are wonderful maps available of Paul's journey where they've already got it outlined. Look at those because that's significant. This trip from Philippi to Troas took more than twice as long as the very same trip when Paul and Luke made it earlier. The reason? This time, the wind was against them. And then on Paul's final day in Troas, we have the account of a long sermon. So long. Paul preached so long that a young man named Eutychus fell asleep and fell outside from an upper story window. And Paul couldn't leave Troas like this with a dead guy from one of his sermons, and so he prayed for a miracle. And Eutychus was raised from the dead. It's amazing. Paul was torn. He really wanted to reach Jerusalem in time for the Feast of Pentecost. But he also wanted to address the Ephesian elders just one more time. His pastor's heart of love was shining brightly. So he did. And he reminded them that they were to feed the flock of God. The word bishop comes from the same word guardian. He warned of two different sources of attacks. And he warned of fierce wolves, false teachers, and then those in the congregation who would rise up with false teaching. When we read Paul's words to Timothy in 1st and 2nd Timothy, some years later, we see evidence that indeed what Paul warned of, it did come to pass. The church will always be the soil where the enemy attempts to plant weeds. We know that parable from Matthew 13. But his efforts must be resisted by the church leaders with twin responses. Not fighting, but love and truth. So the missionary focus of Acts 11 through 20 documented the spread of the gospel from among the populations of several regions to people of every social class and nationality. All of them heard and responded to the saving grace of God in Jesus. Now in your reading, you'll notice that the rest of the chapters recount events that led Paul to his arrest, his trial, and his journey to Rome. We'll see intrigue and violence, a riot in Jerusalem, a secret murder plot, military intervention, and strong presentations of the gospel. So it went from a small group at the beginning of Acts to an explosive Jerusalem church, to Judea, to Samaria, to the uttermost parts of the world. And then now the book is coming back to the individual Paul. It's all about individual decision. You can be a world changer. But first, you need to be changed. I need to be changed. Thanks for studying with me.